Sometimes when solving quadratics, factoring won't always work. So there's this one method that works. It's called complete the square. And here are some tips that you need to know first before you can do this. The lead coefficient to x squared must be that invisible 1. Also, what you need to know is that you're going to get the first two items, isolate for the first two items. These are the only two things that you'll have on one side of the equation, and then you're going to add this c value, and when you add it, you need to add it to both sides. And what goes in that c value is you take half of b and you square it. And once you do that, once you have that half of b squared, the whole purpose for completing the square is so that you can write it as a perfect square binomial. And then it'll equal to whatever this number is plus that c, and that's what's going to go right there. So the half of b, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of this thing squared is just the half of b. So let's give an example. So the first thing we notice, this is not 1, and we want to get these two terms by itself. So 10x squared plus 20x, then I'm going to put plus blank. We need to add, use the additive inverse, add 80 to both sides. And because we put a plus blank here, we're going to put a plus. Well, technically, before you put the plus blanks, we need this coefficient, that coefficient to first be 1. So we're going to divide everything by 10 first. Sorry about that if that was confusing. So let me backtrack a little bit. You're going to get these two items by itself. We added the 80 to both sides. Then before you find the c, we want this lead coefficient to be 1. 20 divided by 10 is 2x. Now I can say plus blank is equal, 80 divided by 10 is 8. We put the plus blank on this side. We've got to put the plus blank on that side. Now remember what goes there. That's the c value. It's half of the b value, and then you square it. So in this case, our b value is 2. So half of 2, and then we're going to square it. Well, half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. And then once we have this to a perfect square trinomial, remember, a perfect square trinomial factors to a binomial squared. You take the square root of x squared, which is x. You take the square root of 1, which is 1. And then you take the first operator. And then on this side, 8 plus 1 is 9. So we do all of that so that we can take the square root of both sides. Remember, on the right side, when you take the square root, you're going to have a positive and negative. You have those two. When you're solving quadratics, you have, and you take the square root, you have two possible answers. So that's positive, negative 3. On this side, the square root of something squared, that cancels, leaving just the x plus 1. Now we're going to subtract the 1 on both sides. X is equal to negative 1 plus or minus 3. So x will equal negative 1 subtract 3, which is negative 4. And x will equal that negative 1 plus 3. Negative 1 plus 3 is positive 2. And then the solution set brackets. Negative 4 is smaller, so we're going to do that. And let me go ahead and undo the steps. So you get the x squared this has to be 1, so make sure that's 1 first. Get x squared plus bx by itself on one side. Once you do that, you can add the blank plus c to both sides. And what goes in that c value is half of b squared. And once you add that to both sides, once you do this, so you have x squared plus 2x plus 1, that factors to x plus 1 squared. And then you're going to take the square root of both sides. So on this side we had 9. When you take the square root, you have to take the positive and negative. So in this case we had 9, positive negative 3, and the squared and the square root cancel. And what we had over here was x plus 1, and we just subtracted the 1 on both sides and then just solved. All right, that's it for this one.